Alright people, so welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series on current affairs. Now today we are going to cover current affairs related to Indian polity. If you have been following this lecture series for quite some time, you know this, that we cover 1 week's current affairs related to one particular subject in one lecture. So that ways we can basically cover current affairs subject wise. This would be really useful for you if you want to integrate your current affairs with your static portion. That is why we are covering them subject wise. Now today is the day for Indian polity and therefore we are going to cover 1 week's current affairs with respect to Indian polity today, right? Okay then, without much delay, without further ado, let's straight away dive into the lectures. Let's begin. So current affairs, Indian polity, this is June part 4. As 1 month has, as you all know, 1 month has 4 weeks. So we are at the end of, well, June for Indian polity. So let's take a look at the topics that we shall cover in today's lecture. Okay, so topics to be covered. Well, recently, Supreme Court has ruled that right to work is a fundamental right now. Now, what was the case all about in which the Supreme Court gave this opinion and what implications will it have? We'll talk about this. Then topic number 2 is related to foreign funding of NGOs, which is related to Foreign Contribution Regulation Amendment Bill 2026. It will be tabled. So, well, we'll talk about the implications related to this because government has basically tightened foreign funding to these NGOs. And because the government is fearful of the fact that certain foreign funds are being used to sabotage India's unity and integrity. So we'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about fraternity, the ideals of fraternity in India. You all are familiar with our preamble. And in that, there are these 3 words: liberty, equality, fraternity. So how is fraternity being used in India? What is the legal position, constitutional position, all of these things? And what Supreme Court judgments have enabled fraternity in India? We'll talk about all these issues. So this is basically related to constitutional law. So these are the 3 news items that we shall zero in our attention on. So let's start discussing them one by one. Starting with topic number 1, and that is right to walk, a fundamental right. You see, well, the case was related to these sidewalks on the sides of the roads. Okay. Now, there have been various issues with respect to encroachments on these sidewalks. And basically, the issue was that whenever you plan cities, you create roads, and on those roads, you create basically situations, or basically you give priority to motor vehicles. All the urban planning focuses on giving priority to motor vehicles, and this has basically made our cities unwalkable as compared to the Western countries, which are really walkable. So, walkability in urban areas needs to be improved. And therefore, a case was filed in the Supreme Court. We'll talk about the case. And in that, the Supreme Court has said that, well, right to walk in these areas is a fundamental right. Now, states, municipalities have to ensure that they create enough spaces in these urban areas for people to walk. Okay, so whenever there is an issue of urban planning, you will create spaces for motor vehicles, but you'll also create spaces for pedestrians to walk. Now, this is an important judgment, and there are going to be ramifications, there are going to be consequences to this judgment. So we'll talk about the consequences, but we'll also talk about what the Supreme Court has opined in this case. Clear? So let's straight away dive into this topic as well. Let's begin. So right to walk, a fundamental right. So what was the case all about? In the path-breaking judgment of Maniyar Ilyas and Sheikh Riaz versus P. Ayyappan, a division bench of Supreme Court of India declared that right to walk on safe, unobstructed and well-demarcated footpaths is an intrinsic fundamental right protected under Part 3 of the Constitution. So now you need to create safe footpaths for pedestrians to walk. Clear? The ruling shifts the legal understanding of public infrastructure, transitioning roads from purely vehicular assets. Earlier, you used to plan roads based on giving priority to vehicles. Now you have to plan this entire infrastructure, not just giving priority to vehicles, but also giving priority to pedestrians. Public spaces where pedestrian safety holds absolute legal precedence. Now, what fundamental rights were used to absorb this right to walk? Right to walk is part of which fundamental right now? Okay, which article basically? So here's the thing. Right to walk matrix. It is covered under Article 21, which is right to life and liberty, personal liberty. So dignified survival, freedom from public hazard. This is your fundamental right to life. So right to life now also includes freedom from accidents. Because the cities are unwalkable, so when you walk on these cities, there are accidents. Some vehicle crushes or basically collides with a person. So create safe spaces. This is under Article 21. Then Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause D is right to free movement. This is right to walk. And Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A, which says right to free speech and expression. Now, these sidewalks are spaces for public, basically, dialogue. So, this is covered under this. And Subclause C says right to assemble peacefully. If the public spaces are not walkable, how would people assemble peacefully over there? Right? So, remember these three articles. These three articles together form right to walk. Or let's just say that right to walk is part of all three of them. That's what the division bench has said. Now, the Supreme Court has also given certain, basically, in its opinion, Supreme Court, whatever the Supreme Court has said, there are legal implications to that as well. Now, what are those legal implications? The judgment introduces several binding directives that reshape administrative liabilities of local governance networks. Now, because right to walk is a fundamental right now, there are three major consequences. Number one, the principle of pedestrian precedence. Earlier, mobility-based infrastructure were planned, giving priority to vehicles, motor vehicles. Now, and in that case, motor vehicles had near monopoly when it comes to urban planning with respect to transportation. Now, pedestrians are also being given a priority. Now, it is compulsory for municipalities to make sure that whenever they plan any mobility-related infrastructure, roads and all, they need to create safe pathways for pedestrians as well where they can walk on. Okay. Then number two, this is really important. Enforceable correlative duty and restitutionary remedies. The Supreme Court in its judgment said that all pedestrians, all citizens of India have constitutional restitutionary remedies with respect to right to walk. Now, what does this term mean? Constitutional restitutionary remedies. Well, what it means is that if because of negligence of the public authorities, if because of negligence on the part of public authorities with respect to planning, any pedestrian gets injured because the footpaths were not safe, there were many issues, okay? If because of their negligence in design of these infrastructure spaces, any citizen gets injured, any pedestrian gets injured, they can sue the municipality or the state government and seek damages, compensation. Now they can do so because right to walk is a fundamental right and citizens have constitutional restitutionary remedies for that. Okay, they have the right to seek compensation if they get injured because of poor planning. And well, they basically interpreted Motor Vehicles Act in a different way, which governs all the vehicle registration and movement of vehicles. So these three things are now a consequence. Clear? But the thing is, this right to walk, the implementation part of this right to walk, well, will face certain challenges. In certain cities of India, there are going to be challenges with respect to enabling this right to walk. What are those challenges? Okay. So challenge number one, the encroachment challenge. You know, all these footpaths and sidewalks are generally victims of encroachment by street hawkers, street vendors. Now, because they are being encroached by street hawkers, street vendors, right to walk, or people are not able to walk on these footpaths freely. So right to walk is getting sabotaged by right to livelihood of these street hawkers and street vendors. Right to livelihood is also a fundamental right. Right to livelihood is a fundamental right under Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause G. These poor street vendors. And right to walk is also a fundamental right. Now, if there is a choice between the two, which right will you choose? Will you clear all the footpaths of these encroachments by street hawkers? Then they would have a genuine grievance that they are not being able to practice their right to livelihood. So this is a problem. Okay. Then municipal financial gaps. Most urban local bodies face severe revenue deficits. Now, retrofitting, recreating, renovating these roads with footpaths would require a lot of capital investment. And Many urban local bodies and municipalities are short of cash. So this is another challenge. And then fragmented jurisdiction. Urban roads are often carved up between overlapping jurisdictions of national highway authorities also there. State PWD departments are there. Municipalities are over there. Okay, so there is overlapping jurisdiction which leads to conflicts between these authorities. Now, who would ensure compliance with respect to right to walk? If there is no right to walk, who would we go to? Should we go to state PWDs, city corporations, or national highways? Well, because you cannot pin down responsibility on one particular organization, there would be legal confusion. And that is a challenge again. Right? Make sense? Okay. That would be all as far as this first topic is concerned. Now let's quickly shift our focus to next news item, and that is Foreign Contribution Regulation Amendment Bill. Now, FCRA Act, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, is basically an act that regulates foreign funding to certain NGOs in India, not certain, all NGOs in India. So if any organization, association needs foreign funds, okay, it has to comply with all the rules and regulations mentioned in Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Now, recently, government has tabled a bill, and in that bill, the government has made it more difficult to seek foreign contribution to their NGOs. Basically, what the government has done is that the government has tightened its regulations. It's really difficult to seek foreign funding, and there is more centralized control with central government. Now, this is being criticized. But first, let's know what changes have been made to this law through this amendment bill. Okay, so let's begin. So, Foreign Contribution Regulation Amendment Bill 2026. So, what is the context? Introduced in Lok Sabha, a bill seeks to implement sweeping structural updates to Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Now, this law is administered directly by Ministry of Home Affairs. The 2026 bill accelerates. So already this law was amended in 2020, and again the government centralized the provisions of this law. With 2026 bill, the government is further centralizing it even more. Okay, so what changes have been brought about? So the core pillars. So section 15 has been deleted and chapter 3A has been added. Now, what are the three core pillars of this chapter 3A? Number one, a designated authority. A central official is now empowered to seize and permanently liquidate NGO assets upon any compliance failure. So if any NGO fails to comply with any rules or regulation, then a central official can seize their assets and even sell them and recover money from it. Okay, this is a big change. Then deemed auto cessation. Now this eradicates, there were certain legal gaps. What happens is that if all these NGOs receive a license from the central government, they have to renew their licenses. Now, if you do not renew your license in due time, your registration gets automatically freezed. Okay. Then mixed asset seizure loop. These provisions state that any asset built even partially with foreign funds vests inside the authority. Basically, even those assets can be seized which were not completely created from foreign funds. They were partially created from foreign funds. Even if there is 10% contribution of foreign funds in a property that an NGO bought, that property can also be seized. This is really controversial. Clear? Now, so this is a table that is shared in your notes as well. This gives a detailed picture. It's very easy to understand. So do take a good look at this. Now let's talk about, well, what are the arguments given by the government for this centralization? Okay. So the first argument is national security imperative, because there are enemies of India outside India and they are not short of money. These enemies use their money to fund certain NGOs whose job is to sabotage unity and integrity of India. Therefore, central government needs to keep a check on these NGOs. Hence, central government needs more powers. So there is a national security imperative. But the flip side to this argument is, well, Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause C gives you right to form associations. Now, this freedom to form associations like NGOs, well, this freedom is getting diluted a little bit with this overarching centralizing tendencies. So this is there. Then, one provision, one core pillar says that the designated authority can seize your assets. Okay. Now, this is a clear violation of your right to property, which is guaranteed under Article 300A. So this is there. Plus, the government says that these changes are in line with Financial Action Task Force's recommendations. But Financial Action Task Force also said that keep a check on those NGOs which are known to finance terror groups. Okay, you have clearly established that these NGOs are supporting these terror groups. But what about normal NGOs? Through this amendment bill, government is also tightening the noose on normal NGOs. So this is the problem. Make sense? Okay, that would be all. And now let's quickly shift our focus to next news item, and that is ideals of fraternity. Now, what is fraternity? You are aware of these three terms, okay? Liberty, equality, fraternity. They are mentioned in our preamble. And these three words were inspired from French Revolution, because this was the rallying cry of French Revolution: liberty, equality, fraternity. Liberty means freedom, equality means equality. We all are aware of equality. And fraternity means brotherhood, that Indians should have this common bond with each other, brotherhood with each other. Now, preamble says that, well, Indian state will promote fraternity, brotherhood among Indians. That yes, we have different castes, we have different classes, we have different religions, but we are Indians inside. There is one bond between us, and that is Indianness. Okay, and fraternity is about preserving that bond of being Indian, right? Now, the Constitution, the preamble specifically mentions the word fraternity. But are there any other provisions in our Constitution? Are there any laws in India? Are there any Supreme Court judgments in India that promote fraternity? Let's investigate this entire matter. And let's also investigate as to why Dr. B.R. Ambedkar added fraternity in our Constitution. Yes? So let's talk about this very quickly, okay? A mains answer can be created out of this topic. So be very careful while studying this topic, okay? So ideals of fraternity in India. Fraternity. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar defined it as a sense of common brotherhood of all Indians, of Indians being one people. It is the principle which gives unity and solidarity to social life, okay? Now, even, at one point of time, now it's no longer there, Article 370 of our Constitution gave special status to the state of Jammu and Kashmir, the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. The reason behind this was that, yes, many people said that it is a clear-cut violation of equality. Because while other states did not enjoy certain privileges, Jammu and Kashmir was enjoying those privileges. Yes. So why is there this discrimination among states? Certain states don't enjoy privileges while J&K enjoys certain privileges. This is a violation of right to equality. But this was done so that J&K has a sense of belonging with India, to promote fraternity. At least that was the argument that was given. This is what second point says. Here, we'll talk about how India's federalism is flexible enough to balance regional aspirations as well as India, unity of India. Okay, we'll talk about this. First, let's talk about what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said about liberty, equality, and fraternity. Okay, now, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar described it as inseparable trinity, which means Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said that we cannot have only liberty, we cannot have only equality, we cannot have only fraternity. All three of them have to come together, otherwise none of them would exist. These three values either exist together, individually, no value can exist on its own. Liberty cannot exist without equality. Liberty without equality, it produces supremacy of the few. Okay, if there is no equality, powerful people will take all the privileges, okay, all the freedoms, and majority won't be left with those freedoms. Then equality without liberty, it kills individual initiative. If you try to equalize everything, meritocracy suffers. And fraternity, the underlying glue, without it, enforcement requires a constable. If there is no common brotherhood among Indians, Indians would keep on fighting about equality, liberty. There will be constant fights. Okay, so fraternity is the underlying glue which prevents conflicts. Okay, which prevents conflicts without the need for a constable, a policeman. You understand? These three things have to come together. Make sense? Now, where in our Constitution can we find the value of fraternity? First of all, in our preamble. It's clearly written in our preamble: liberty, equality, fraternity. Remember, these three words were inspired from French Revolution. An MCQ can be asked from this information, so remember this. Then, India does not have dual citizenship. Like USA, in USA, you have two citizenships. One citizenship of America, the other citizenship of the state you belong to. In India, you're not a state citizen, you are an Indian citizen. We follow single citizenship. Then, fundamental duties also, there is a fundamental duty, Article 51AE, which says that you need to promote harmony and common brotherhood among all citizens. So this is also fulfilling the ideals of fraternity. And then fundamental rights, Article 15 says that state shall not discriminate against any citizen. That means all citizens are equal. That means fraternity. Article 17 abolishes untouchability, caste-based discrimination. You need to treat people from different castes as your Indian brothers. This also promotes fraternity. Yes, makes sense. Now, how does federalism in India balance fraternity? So there is a conflict. Federalism means that you need to give certain states some regional rights. So you give certain states some regional rights, but you also do not overgive them those rights because you need to balance fraternity. How does these things, these rights given to certain states, harm fraternity? So certain states have been allowed to provide residence-based employment quotas. Okay, Himachal, Andhra, Haryana experimented with that. Okay, so these domicile-based quotas are given to certain states. State employment will be given to only people from that state. Now, this is a clear violation of fraternity as well as Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause E, freedom to reside anywhere, live anywhere. This is a problem. Then interstate border and water disputes. Well, they are a complete violation. States fighting with each other. Haryana, Punjab fighting with each other. Tamil Nadu, Karnataka fighting with each other. That is clear violation of principle of fraternity. And then language related issues. Okay, linguistic nationalism. Okay, promoting your own language is good, but promoting your own language to an extent that all other languages are bad, this is a violation of principle of fraternity. But nowadays we are witnessing the rise of linguistic nationalism in regional politics. This is there. Clear? Now, certain landmark judicial judgments which promote fraternity. So there is Nandini Sundar versus State of Chhattisgarh. What happened was that, well, there was Naxalism in Chhattisgarh. Most Naxals came from tribal belts. Now, government basically created an organization called Salva Judum, which included some of these tribals, and this tribal group, Salva Judum, was created to fight Naxals. So tribals were fighting with each other. One group belonged to Naxals and one group belonged to state-sponsored Salva Judum. Supreme Court banned Salva Judum based on fraternity, saying that you cannot basically force Indian citizens to fight against each other. This was there. The Navtej Singh Johar judgment, it extended the concept of fraternity to include marginalized groups, marginalized sections. Okay. Then Subramaniam Swamy versus Union of India. The court balanced individual liberty against fraternal harmony. Basically, the Subramaniam Swamy judgment, the case was related to freedom of speech and expression. The court said that in service of the ideal of fraternity, you cannot give absolute freedom of speech and expression. Okay, you have freedom of speech and expression, but you cannot use that right to insult other groups living in India. So there are restrictions on your speech so that you do not insult other groups. Because if you do so, fraternity would get compromised. Make sense? Clear? That would be all. That's about it. And we shall conclude our lecture with this. Clear? So I hope you enjoyed the lecture and I hope it added value to your preparation. Now, it will add more value if you do these two things. Number one, be consistent and regular with this lecture series. And number two, revise this lecture from the notes provided by us. The notes are shared on our Telegram channel and the link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section below. So make sure you check that out. All right? Okay then. That would be all from my side, guys. I shall see you next time with another lecture in our current affairs lecture series. Thank you, everyone.